Marhaban, my name is Ian Campbell, and this series of 5 videos is the 4th series in a whole set of videos explaining the basics of how to speak, read, and write Al-Fusha, or Modern Standard Arabic. These 5 videos will explore what we call the idafa in Arabic. This is how we link nouns together in relationships of possession. It's easy to use, but works backwards from English, so it takes some getting used to. This second video will go into more detail about the types of words we find in idafas. So it's very common for idafas to have 3 or more words. I worked with 2-word idafas in the first video, but it's quite common for them to have 3, 4, 5, even 6 or 7 words. In classical Arabic, they can sometimes get even longer. In order to understand idafas properly, we're going to divide the words into non-first and non-final words, which is kind of an oddball way of looking at it, but is actually very useful from your perspective. We'll start with non-final words here because they're a little bit easier. They have to look indefinite, but because they're in the chain of nouns that make up the idafa, they count as definite, and we'll see there's a couple of exceptions to this as we go. So let's take a look at these words. Salon, from French salon or English salon, is a living room. Beit, house, and then ammi. So your is your uncle, but your paternal uncle. In Arabic, we're much more specific about how people are related to us than we are in English. So your father's brother is what this means. So this word looks indefinite, and this word looks indefinite, and this one has a damir or pronoun on the end, marking it as definite and thus ending the chain of words in the idafa. So salon, beit, ammi, the sitting room of the house of my uncle, or in the living room is what I'm calling it, of my paternal uncle. I'm going to call him your P-uncle here because we don't do this in English. Or we could say matbakh shaqqat ammati. So a shaqqat is an apartment, a flat I'm going to call it here because it's easier to type, and plus it sounds posher. So shaqqat ammati. Now we have but we've added ta marbuta and then turned it back into regular ta because we want to put a damir or possessive pronoun on the end. So matbakh, the cooking place, literally the kitchen. Shaqqat, the apartment or flat. We hear the ta in ta marbuta. And ammati, my aunt, my paternal aunt, the sister of my father in English. Again, we wouldn't really get this specific in English. A hammam is a bathroom. Originally, it means a public bath, which if you ever go overseas and live in the Arabic-speaking world, a thing that you ought to do is to go explore the public baths, which are marvelous. But in regular parlance, it just means bathroom. So hammam, beit, khalik. So your khal is your maternal uncle, the brother of your mother. So we have to know what side of the family people come from. For a lot of modern Americans, this is difficult because we don't really have quite as close a relationship with our extended family as Arabic speakers typically do. Not always true, but most of the time. So here we have hammam, beit, khalik, the bathroom of the house of your uncle. So this word is mu'arraf or definite, bisabab ad-damir. It has a pronoun on the end. These 2 words look indefinite, but they're not. They're definite because they're in the chain of words and they're owned. So in better English, we might render this one as your uncle's house's bathroom, and this one is my aunt's flat kitchen, and this one is my uncle's house's living room. So again, we word these backwards in Arabic from the way we do in English. It's pretty easy to get used to, though. So you do a couple of dozen of these and you'll have it down and it won't be a problem. But if you don't pay attention to how they work, you're going to make all kinds of silly mistakes when you go to try to create phrases and sentences like this, which is why I'm going into such detail here. So here's some more examples. Shaqqat is apartment, ibn is son, and khala is the maternal aunt. And it's been turned back into ta marbuta, or back from ta marbuta here, because we have a suffix, the ha, for her. So ibn khala, the son of her paternal aunt. And in English, we just have this great all-purpose word, cousin, to mean this. But in Arabic, we have to be more specific, not just they're your cousin, but how they're your cousin. Because culturally, especially in traditional culture, these things really matter. So you might have a cousin and you might have to sit down and be like, okay, well, how exactly are they related to me before you figure out what to call them in Arabic. We could say kalb bint ammikum. So here's the paternal uncle, y'all's paternal uncle, and the daughter of that uncle is your cousin. So the daughter of y'all's paternal uncle is literally what we're saying here. So kalb and bint both look indefinite, but they're definite because they're in the chain of words that makes up the idafa. And then this one here is definite bisabab ad-damir. Or hadika. Hadika is a great all-purpose word meaning green space, garden, lawn, park, could be any of those. So hadikat, we hear the ta and ta marbuta, beit ibn khali. So the son of my maternal uncle. In other words, his father and my mother are siblings. And again, this sounds odd to Americans for the most part, to have to figure out and state how the person is related to you. But this is really common in Arabic, so you have to learn to do it. So the garden of the house of the son of my uncle, or my cousin's house's lawn or garden. It would depend upon context here. So you can, these words for relations, especially cousins, involve idafas. So ibn khalitaha is an idafa all by itself, the son of her aunt. And then we can append another word to the beginning and now make it the apartment of the son of her aunt to get her cousin's flat in English. So it's a little bit easier in English because we don't have to be specific about how these people are related to us. But it's also very useful to know, because if you ever go to the Arabic-speaking world, you're going to be discussing your family. And even if you're the sort of American who doesn't have a lot of contact with their extended family, your Arabic-speaking friends are going to want to know all about them. So learn that. Make sure you can tell how someone's related to you. So because these words need to look indefinite, they can't be proper nouns or have possessive suffixes. However, the my or your class exception applies here too. So we could say Ustad, Safi, Al-Adab. Al-Adab is literature. Safi, my class, and Ustad. So Ustad clearly looks indefinite, but it's owned by Safi. The breaking of the rule here is that Safi is marked as definite even though it's not the last word in the idafa. And this is a very common formulation. You'd often do it something with like Sadiqi Muhammad, my friend Muhammad, when you're using somebody's first name in something. This will come up a lot as well. So the professor of my class, the literature, technically breaking a rule, but so common as to be effectively valid in the modern language. And remember, grammar is descriptive, not prescriptive. Grammar describes how we speak. It doesn't force us to speak in a certain way. So the professor of my class of the literature comes out to my lit class's professor, or the professor of my lit class, you might say in English. Asatidhat, now it's plural. Sufufikum, now the classes are plural, and so are y'all. At-tarikh, so the professors of y'all's classes, the history, gives us y'all's history classes professors. Ghurfat Safiha al-Fizya. Al-Fizya is physics. So the room of her class, the physics, gives us her physics class's room. This is quite common, so you should get used to it, especially with like the way someone is related to you and then their name, or the class somebody is taking and what kind of class it is. Technically breaking a rule, but so common as to be completely widespread and valid in the modern language. It's also very common to use demonstratives, this, that, these, and those, which are definite nouns in Arabic, in the middle of idafas. So this is something you'll see all the time. So qarib. Qarib is an adjective. It means near or close to. But Arabic really regards nouns and adjectives as being fundamentally the same thing. So this is a noun here, a close person, and therefore a relative. So qarib hadha shab. So hadha is a definite noun, but it's allowed to go in the middle of an idafa. That's just fine. ashab. So hadha ashab, this the guy gives us this guy, and it's the relative, even though it's not marked as definite because it can't be, because it's a non-final word in an idafa. So the relative of this guy, or in better English, this guy's relative. قطة, here the ta marbuta, ذلك الأستاذ, so that professor, the cat of that professor, or that professor's cat. أقرباء is the human plural of qarib. If you said qaribun, everyone would get what you meant, but it's أقرباء. So أقرباء هؤلاء الطلاب. So هؤلاء is our human plural for هذا. الطلاب, students, also human plural. So the relatives of these students, or these students' relatives. This is something you'll see all the time, having an ism ishara, a demonstrative, this, that, these, or those, in the middle of an idafa. Arabic loves to do this, and you'll see it all the time, and you'll get used to it very quickly. All right, now let's turn to non-first words. Mostly, it's not important to you. So if you have a teacher who is a stickler for the case marking system, which is largely redundant in modern Arabic, you'll have to learn this, but this is kind of background information here. So non-first words, that is all but the first word, are in what we call the majrur case, literally pulled down. In English, this is often regarded as the genitive case. We don't do this in English except during pronouns, so it's probably not something you're very used to, and you really don't need to worry about it for the most part, especially at the introductory level. Once you get to be an advanced or superior level student, then this case marking system is another thing you can add to your repertoire of things that you can do in Arabic, but for the most part, it's pretty irrelevant for a first-year student. So once a word is in what we call the majrur case, the case here meaning the role it is playing in the string of words or sentence, this means their little helping vowel after the word is a kasra instead of the default dhamma. And so this is mostly irrelevant to you. However, as we learned with prepositions, the nouns following prepositions are also in the majrur case. So the final suffix has to change from hu to he, because for poetry reasons, we're not allowed to say ihu in Arabic. We have to say ihi instead. So qittat are cats, plural. Ustadhik. So here's our little helping vowel, is this kasra here. Now, if you said qittat ustadhak, everyone would understand you mean your professor's cats, who are lovely creatures. However, if we're going to be super persnickety, we're going to make this little helping vowel a kasra, and the reason is because it's a non-first word and an idafa. So kilab is the plural of kalb for dog, so kilab sadiqiha, the dogs of her friend or her friend's dogs. If you said kilab sadiqha, everyone would completely understand what you meant, but it flows better if there's these little helping vowels, and that's why I'm taking the time to do this. So Beit ibni khalihi. So this word, because it's a non-first word, gets to have kasra as its helping vowel to make it flow to the next word. And khal, uncle, has to be in the majrur case as well, so it gets its kasra, and so his uncle has to become khalihi instead of khaluhu. So watch out for that one. If you said Beit ibn khaluhu, everyone would understand exactly what you meant, but this is here for completeness purposes. Durus is lessons, saffihim al-adab. So you can't say saf, you have to say saffi because it's a non-first word in an idafa, and therefore the hum for their, human plural there, has to change to him. This is one of those that, like, gets you from like 98% to 100% on the test, if I were to ever give tests, which I don't. So it's not super relevant to you as a novice Arabic speaker, but it's in the background there, and it'll just help you sound that much classier, and we like to be classy. So words in the middle, if we have a 3 or 4 or 5 word idafa, are both non-first, which means they can't be marked as definite, with a couple of exceptions, and they're non-final, I got that backwards. They're non-final, so they can't be marked as definite. And they're non-first, so they're in the majrur case and have a helping vowel as kasra. That is, both conditions apply. The final word nearly always is clearly definite, but sometimes we'll get these counterexamples where it's marked as indefinite. So let me give you a few here. So, Beit Jedd Atolib. So a Jedd is a grandfather, and even though you have to mark aunts and uncles coming from different sides of the families, for some reason you don't have to mark grandfathers and grandmothers this way. I don't know, it's Arabic, it's complicated. So the house of the grandfather of the student, so here the final word is marked definite, bi alif lam. These two both look indefinite but are actually indefinite. These two, because they're non-first words, are both in the majrur case, so their helping vowel is kasra. So we get the house of the grandfather of the student, or the student's grandfather's house. Shaqqat jaddat, and I should have a kasra here as well. Shaqqat jaddati sadiqatihi Aisha. So the apartment of the grandmother of his friend, and her name is Aisha. So it's a proper name, and this noun here, even though it isn't the final noun in the idafa, has a possessive suffix, making it definite. So this is like going up here to where we talked about your something class. It's one of the major exceptions to the rule that non-final words have to look indefinite. So the apartment of the grandmother of his friend Aisha, or his friend Aisha's grandmother's flat. Hada'iq is the plural of hadiqa. So if you don't know these broken plurals, and it's a non-human noun, add at to make it plural. So hadiqa, hadiqat. Everyone will get you. It's like saying I have 3 childs instead of children. So hada'iq is parks or gardens. Medinati Amman. So Amman is the name of the city, so it's a proper name, even though it doesn't have alif lam. So it's definite. And then when we talk about the name of a city in Arabic, we often put the city of before it. And that's just how we roll. There's no good reason for it. So the city of Amman's parks, or in English we just say Amman's parks, or the parks of Amman. Couple more examples. Here's a long idafa. Matbakh, the cooking place, a kitchen. Beiti, house. Sadiqi, friend. Binti, ought to have a kasra here as well. Khalatihi. So it often works better to go backwards in English. His uncle's daughters, friends, houses, kitchen, or the kitchen of the house of his cousin's friend, is what we're saying here. Yes, this is complicated, but if you parse it one word at a time, it will work out pretty well for you. So just remember that ibn or bint for son or daughter, plus am or amma, paternal uncle, aunt, or khal or khala, maternal uncle, aunt, makes cousin in Arabic. Or if you really don't know, use the word qarib for relative, and people will just roll with it. Here we have asdiqa, which is the plural of sadiq. If you said sadiqun, everyone would get it, but it's asdiqa. So asdiqa, the friends of zawjati rajulin. So now we left the last word indefinite, which we don't do very much, but it does happen from time to time, and our kasra turns into double kasra. Its name is tanween al-kasr, which is pronounced like in. If you just said asdiqa zawjat rajul, everyone would understand you. All of this is here for completeness purposes. What I want you to notice is that non-final words mostly have to look indefinite, and the final one is definite. And for the non-first words, they're going to mess with these suffixes for ho and hum and turn them into he and him for reasons that go back to classical poetry, and I'm not about to explain those today. Instead, I'm going to say ma